And we are back with part 2 of this week's Shabbat service for Waymaker Messianic Jewish and Christian Center USA. It is Saturday, March 20th, 2021 on the Gregorian calendar, and it is Nisan 7, 5781 on the Hebrew calendar. And we are in the Torah portion, and we are going to begin chapter 3 of this week's Torah portion, Parashat VaYikra, and he called. So we're talking about offerings here. We are now going into the Shalom Offerings or peace offerings. Now, if his offering is a sacrifice of fellowship offerings, if from the herd, whether male or female, he is to offer one without blemish before Adonai. So all the offerings must be without blemish. Um, you can see where this is a type and shadow of Yeshua, who was without blemish, without sin. He was perfect in every way, and the only one that walked the earth was perfect in every way. He shall lay his hand on the head of his offering and slaughter it at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's sons, the Kohanim, are to splash the blood around on the altar. He is to bring from the sacrifice of fellowship offerings an offering made by fire to Adonai, the fat that covers the innards, all the fat that is on the entrails, as well as the 2 kidneys and the fat that is on them, which is by the loins, plus the cover on the liver that he must remove with the kidneys. Aaron's sons are to burn it up as smoke on the altar on top of the burnt offering, which is over the wood that is on the fire. It is an offering made by fire, a soothing aroma to Adonai. If his gift for a sacrifice of fellowship offerings to Adonai is from the flock, he is to offer a male or female without blemish. If he is bringing a lamb for his offering, he should present it before Adonai. He is to lay his hand on the head of his offering and slaughter it before the tent of meeting. Aaron's sons are to splash its blood around on the altar. From the sacrifice of fellowship offerings, he should bring a gift made by fire to Adonai. Its fat, the entire tail fat cut away close to the backbone, along with the fat that covers the innards and all the fat that is on the entrails, as well as the 2 kidneys and the fat that is over them, which is by the loins, plus the cover on the liver that he is to remove with the kidneys. The Kohen is to burn it up as smoke on the altar as a food offering made by fire to Adonai. If his offering is a goat, then he should present it before Adonai. He is to lay his hand on its head and slaughter it before the tent of meeting. Aaron's sons are to splash its blood around on the altar. From it he is to offer as his sacrifice an offering made by fire to Adonai, the fat that covers the innards, all the fat that is on the entrails, the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is over them, which is by the loins, and the cover on the liver, which he must remove with the kidneys. The Kohen is to burn them on the altar. It is the food of the offering made by fire for a soothing aroma. All fat is for Adonai. It is to be a perpetual statute throughout your generations and all your dwellings that you must eat neither fat nor blood. Chapter 4 Sacrifices for Unintentional Sins. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel, saying, If anyone sins unintentionally in any of Adonai's mitzvot that are not to be done, and commits any one of them, or if the anointed Kohen sins so as to bring guilt on the people, then let him offer for his sin which he has committed a young bull without blemish to Adonai for a sin offering. He is to bring the bull to the entrance of the tent of meeting before Adonai, lay his hand on the head of the bull, and slaughter it before Adonai. Then anointed Kohen should take some of the blood of the bull and bring it to the tent of meeting. The Kohen is to dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before Adonai, before the curtain of the sanctuary. The Kohen should put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of sweet incense before Adonai, which is in the tent of meeting, and he is to pour out all of the rest of the blood of the bull at the base of the altar of burnt offering, which is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He is to take all the fat of the bull of the sin offering off of it, the fat that covers the innards, all the fat that is on the entrails, the two kidneys, and the fat that is over them, which is by the loins, and the cover on the liver, which he is to remove with the kidneys, just as it is removed from the bull of the sacrifice of fellowship offerings. The Kohen should burn them up as smoke on the altar of burnt offering. The bull's hide, all its flesh, with its head along with its legs, its innards, and its tongue. The entire bull is to be carried outside the camp to a clean place where the fat ashes are poured out, and burn it over wood in the fire. It is to be burnt on top of the place of pouring fat ashes. Now, if the whole congregation of Israel sins, but the deed is hidden from the eyes of the community, yet they have done one of Adonai's mitzvot that are not to be done, then they are guilty. When the sin that they committed becomes known, then the community is to offer a young bull for a sin offering and bring it before the tent of meeting. The elders of the congregation are to lay their hands on the head of the bull before Adonai, and the bull is to be slaughtered before Adonai. The anointed Kohen should bring some of the blood from the bull to the tent of meeting. Then the Kohen is to dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before Adonai, before the curtain. He is to put some of the blood on the horns of the altar that is before Adonai in the tent of meeting, and the rest of the blood he is to pour out at the base of the altar of burnt offering, which is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He is to take all its fat from it and burn it up as smoke on the altar. He is also to do with the bull, just as he did with the bull of the sin offering. He must do the same with it. So the Kohen shall make atonement for them, and they will be forgiven. Then he is to carry the bull outside the camp and burn it as he burned the first bull. It is the sin offering for the community. When a ruler sins and unwittingly does one of the mitzvot of Adonai his God that are not to be done, then he is guilty. When his sin that he committed is made known to him, he is to bring as his offering a goat, a male without blemish. He is to lay his hand on the head of the goat and slaughter it in the place where they slaughter the burnt offering before Adonai. It is a sin offering. The Kohen should take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering. He is to pour out the rest of its blood at the base of the altar and of the burnt offering. He is to burn all its fat on the altar, just like the fat of the sacrifice of fellowship offerings. So the Kohen shall make atonement for him concerning his sin, and he will be forgiven. When any one of the common people sins unwittingly by doing one of Adonai's mitzvot that are not to be done, then he is guilty. When a sin that he committed is made known to him, then he is to bring for his offering a goat, a female without blemish, for his sin that he committed. He is to lay his hand on the head of the sin offering and then slaughter it at the place of burnt offering. The Kohen is to take some of its blood with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering. He is to pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. He is to take away all its fat, just like the fat is taken away from off of the sacrifice of fellowship offerings. And the Kohen should burn it on the altar for a soothing aroma to Adonai. So the Kohen is to make atonement for him, and he will be forgiven. Sin offerings. Now, if he brings a lamb as his sacrifice for a sin offering, he is to bring a female without blemish. He is to lay his hand on the head of the sin offering and slaughter it at the place where they slaughter the burnt offering. The Kohen should take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering. Then all the rest of its blood he is to pour out at the base of the altar. He must remove all its fat, just as the fat of the lamb is taken away from the sacrifice of fellowship offerings. Then the Kohen is to burn them on the altar on Adonai's offerings by fire. So the Kohen shall make atonement for him over the sin that he committed, and he will be forgiven. In chapter 5, if a soul sins after hearing a charge of an oath, and he is a witness, whether he has seen or otherwise known, If he fails to report it, then he will bear his guilt. Or if a person touches any unclean thing, whether it is the carcass of an unclean animal, or the carcass of unclean livestock, or the carcass of unclean creeping things, though it is hidden from him, still he is unclean and he will be guilty. Or if he touches some human uncleanness, whatever his filth is by which he is unclean, though it is hidden from him, when he knows of it, then he will be guilty. Or if a person swears rashly with his lips to do evil or to do good, about anything that one might utter rashly by an oath, though it is hidden from him, when he realizes it, then he will be guilty of one of these. So it will be, when one becomes guilty of one of these things, he should confess about what he has sinned. Then he is to bring his trespass offering to Adonai for his sin that he committed, a female from the flock, a lamb or a goat as a sin offering. So the Kohen is to make atonement for him over his sin. But if one cannot afford a lamb, then he should bring as his trespass offering for the sin he committed 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to Adonai. One is for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. He is to bring them to the Kohen, who will present the one for sin offering first and twist his head from its neck, but not sever it completely. He is to sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the altar, while the rest of the blood is to be drained out at the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. He is to make the second a burnt offering according to the regulation. So the Kohen is to make atonement for one over his sin that he committed, and he will be forgiven. But if one cannot afford 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he is to bring as his offering for the sin he has committed a tenth of an ephah of fine flour as a sin offering. He is to put no oil on it, nor put any frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering. He is to bring it to the Kohen. Then the Kohen is to take his handful of it as the memorial portion and burn it up as smoke on the altar on Adonai's offerings by fire. It is a sin offering. The Kohen is to make atonement for him over his sin that one has committed in any of these things, and he will be forgiven. The rest belongs to the Kohen, just like the meal offering. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, if anyone commits a faithless act and sins unwittingly against the holy things of Adonai, then he is to bring his trespass offering to Adonai, a ram without blemish from the flock, according to your value in silver shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for a trespass offering. He is to make restitution for that which he has done wrong in regard to the holy thing, and it is required to add a fifth part to it and give it to the Kohen. The Kohen will make atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering, and he will be forgiven. Now, if anyone sins and one of Adonai's commandments that are not to be done, though he did not know it, still he is guilty and will bear his iniquity. He is to bring to the Kohen a ram without blemish from of the flock, according to your value, as a trespass offering. Then the Kohen is to make atonement for him over the sin that he committed unknowingly, and he will be forgiven. It is a trespass offering. He is absolutely guilty before Adonai. Mitzvot of restitution. Then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, suppose anyone sins and commits a faithless act against Adonai by dealing falsely with his neighbor in a matter of a deposit or a pledge of hands, or through robbery, or has extorted from his neighbor, or has found what was lost and lied about it, swearing falsely to sinning in one of any of these things that a man may do. Then it will be, when he has sinned and has become guilty, that he must restore what he took by robbery, or what he got by extortion, or the deposit that was committed to him, or what was lost that he found, or anything about which he has sworn falsely. He is to restore it in full and add a fifth part more to it. He must give it to the one to whom it belongs on the day of presenting his trespass offering. He is to bring his trespass offering to Adonai, a ram without blemish from the flock, according to your value, for a trespass offering to the Kohen. The Kohen shall make atonement for him before Adonai, and he will be forgiven concerning whatever he may have done to become guilty. And that's the end of the Torah portion. So to quickly recap this portion of Parashat VaYikra opens where the book of Exodus leaves off after God's glory descends to the tabernacle. Moses cannot enter, therefore God has to call to him to come forward. And we begin in the book of Leviticus with the several sacrificial services. There are voluntary offerings and there are mandatory offerings. And korban is the Hebrew word for sacrifice, and that's derived from the word karov, Karov, meaning close. The purpose of the sacrifice then is to bring the bearer closer to God because of sin or what have you. Well, also because of fellowship offerings as well to get closer to God. And like the tabernacle in which it is brought, the goal of the sacrifice is to um, bring a relationship with B'nai Israel and Adonai. So we begin with burnt offerings, and that was definitely described. And then we have meal offerings, and this is made of grain and oil and frankincense. And salt was also addressed here. The Hebrew word nephesh means soul, and that is used to describe the one who brings a meal offering. When a poor person goes to this much trouble to bring an offering from what he very barely has, it is very valued as he has offered his soul to God. Shalom offerings were described, and remember, that's also shalom is peace. Um, The offerings of the animals they were very explicitly described as to how they needed to be done. The hands placed on the head while it is slaughtered, um, and the blood needing to be drained, um, and very clearly stated, no one should be eating blood or fat. Um, Sin offering and guilt offerings are addressed as well. Now, there are bulls used as offerings, there are goats, there are sheep, some are male, some are female. Then we've got turtle doves or pigeons, and then we also have the matzah, the grain offerings for those that can't afford the animal sacrifice to Adonai. So I'm going to begin the Haftarah portion. And the Haftarah portion is Isaiah 43. And actually, I'm going to begin it at the beginning of this segment. Instead of verse 21, I am actually going to begin with verse 8 to chapter 44, verse 28. So we're going to begin. You are my witnesses. Bring out the people who are blind, yet have eyes, who are deaf, yet have ears. All the nations are gathered together, and the peoples are assembled. Who among them can declare this and proclaim to us former things? Let them present their witnesses so that they may be justified, or let them hear and say, it is true. You are my witnesses. It is a declaration of Adonai and my servant, whom I have chosen, so that you may know and believe me, and understand that I am he. Before me no God was formed, and there was none after me. I am Adonai, and there is no Savior beside me. I alone declared and saved and proclaimed, and not some foreign God among you. So you are my witnesses. It is a declaration of Adonai, and I am God. For eternity I am He. None can deliver from my hand. I act, and who can reverse it? Thus says Adonai, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. For your sake I will send to Babylon and bring down the fleeing Chaldeans, all of them, in the ships in which they exult. I am Adonai, your Holy One, the Creator of Israel, your King. Thus says Adonai, who makes a way in the sea and a path in the mighty waters, who drew out chariots and horses, the army and the warrior. They will lie down together and not rise again. They are extinguished, quenched like a wick. Do not remember former things, nor consider things of the past. Here I am doing a new thing. Now it is springing up. Do you know about it? Do you not know about it? I will surely make a way in the desert, rivers in the wasteland. The field animals honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, because I give water in the desert, rivers in the wilderness to drink to my chosen people, the people I formed for myself, so they might declare my praise. Yet you have not called on me, Jacob, for you have been weary of me, Israel. You have not brought me sheep for your burnt offerings, nor have you honored me with your sacrifices. I did not compel you to serve offerings, nor wearied you with incense. You have not spent money buying me aromatic cane, nor have you satisfied me with the fat of your sacrifices. Rather, you burdened me with your sins, wearied me with your iniquities. I am the one who blots out your transgressions for my own sake and will not remember your sins. Remind me when we argue our case together. State your case so you may be proved right. Your first father sinned, and your mediators rebelled against me. So I profaned the sanctuary officials and gave Jacob over to destruction and Israel to scorn. And I am going to pause it here, and we're going to come back with part 3 and finish out the Haftorah.